Hello witches, welcome back. This is part 2 of module 4, and in this module we're going to be discussing how to dress candles and different techniques, and I'm going to do a demonstration for you. I'm actually going to do a couple of demonstrations for you. Now I know that the last video was quite long and you probably had to take a couple of breaks to get through it. We've covered a lot of information thus far and we're going to cover even more. So just stay tuned, be sure to have a journal to write down notes, and be sure to save all of the PDFs that are included with this course. So the first technique that we're going to be discussing today is how to dress non-glass encased candles. And like I said in my PDF, I group any candle that's not glass encased in that category. So these are Shabbos candles. This is an example. You can use a chime candle. You can use a taper candle. And guys, when I say a chime candle or a taper candle, these are the candles I'm talking about. So this is an example of a chime candle. They are relatively small in size, a little bit taller than a Shabbos candle, but a lot thinner. And these are really popular. You can get them at most metaphysical shops, witchy shops, Wiccan shops, botanicas. You can get them almost anywhere. You can order them on Amazon. They have packages of the colors, individual colors. So like I have whole packages of red and green because I use those a lot. They have packages that are mixed that have like one of each different color if you want to just have one for everything on hand. Totally affordable, and the choice is up to you. This is another example of a taper candle. So this is a taper candle that I actually use for my own personal road opening spells. It's pretty large. It does take a while to burn down, so you do have to stand vigilantly over it and monitor it. As with doing any candle spells, always use fire safety. Another example of a taper candle are these guys, and these are your typical candles that you find in like a candelabra, or you put in a little candlestick holders. And I purchased these from the dollar store. The dollar store, like I said, is a really witchy, but you can get them anywhere. Now we'll warn you that when you do get wax from the dollar store, one thing that you're gonna find is that the wax burns really fast. It's not as high quality wax, so you don't get as long as a burn time, but it will get the job done. And I mean, if you don't mind it burning fast, I mean, I don't necessarily feel that's a bad thing. If I'm doing a spell, I don't necessarily need it to last for 3 days or 4 hours or whatever, right? If I want a longer lasting spell, then typically what I'm going to use is a glass encased candle. But we'll get to that in a minute. So right now, what we're going to do is I am going to do a demonstration for you on dressing a non-glass encased candle. So the first thing that you're going to want to do, as I said in the PDF that went with this, is you're going to want to have your little tray. This tray is going to serve 2 purposes, actually 3. So we're not only going to put our oil on here, we're also going to put our dried herbs on here, and we're also going to roll the candle. Now, what I mentioned in the PDF for this week, for this module, is that what kind of spells you're doing is going to determine the way that you're going to roll it. Now, we'll get to that. So first thing that I'm going to do, I have this oil here. Now, the oil that I have, this is the leftover herbs from my healing mix of oil that I made, right? The rest of it is in the closet emulsifying, because we're using the dark emulsification for the other half of that infusion process. But you can use any oil. You can use just regular olive oil that you've spoken intentions over. If you want to, you can use pre-made oils that you have. You can even use essential oils. All of that, it's kind of going to be open to you how you want to do it. Like I said yesterday, or in the video for module 4 part 1, it was yesterday for me, like I said, you're not going to be able to use the oils that we made in that video. That you can use them, but they're not going to be fully emulsified, right? They're not going to be ready. But you can still use them, which is kind of what I'm going to do for you guys today. So you're just going to take an oil. I have a trusty oil dropper, which I've shown you guys And I'm just gonna suck some of that oil up, a good amount of it. And I'm going to drop it on the tray. I like to drop it on one side of the tray, and you'll see why in just a minute. I kind of do this a little bit, not too much. I don't want it all over the tray, but I do want to have it kind of spread out just a little bit. Okay. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my herbs. This is some more of my herbs from that same blend. If you are using an oil that is not obviously the same as the herb blend, just make sure that the herbs that you're using do match the same correspondences and properties of the oil that you're using. You could use, so a popular combination, you could use like a cleansing oil and then protection herbs. So you're cleansing yourself of the bad stuff and then protecting yourself, following up with protection, right? So that's one that you could do. Another one of my favorite combos to use together is road opening and money draw. So I'll use road opening powder and herbs with my money draw oil. And that's actually one of the demonstrations I'm going to show you here in a minute. But whatever the case may be, you're going to take your herbs. They should be ground up fairly ground. The larger that they are, the harder it's going to be for them to stick to this candle. And we do want them to stick. So you're just going to take your herbs and you're going to sprinkle them out on the other half of the tray, okay? And I do apologize, my husband's on the phone in the other room. He's being a little loud, so hopefully y'all can't hear that. Okay, so that is an efficient and good size of herbs. There we go. So now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our candle, our non-glass encased candle, and we are first going to roll it in the oil. Now, you're gonna roll it, the direction that you roll it depends on the kind of spell that you're doing. And we're gonna talk about attracting versus removing herbs next week, a little bit later on in this course when we talk about herb baths. And this all kind of goes together. That's what I love about herb magic, is it all kinds of builds. But this part is important for this specific piece right here. So what you're gonna wanna do, since I'm doing healing, that is something that I wanna bring towards me, right? I want to attract the healing. I wanna draw that towards me, bring it in. So I'm gonna roll towards me. Now, if I was gonna do prosperity or protection, it would be the same. I'll roll towards me. If you used one of the other herb blends from the Starter Witch Recipe Kit, say for instance, you use the cleansing or the banishing, those are removing. So when you're doing a cleansing, you're removing the bad stuff. You're taking it away. When you're doing banishing or exorcism or purification, obviously there, as the names imply, you're moving that away from you too. So all of that matters. So again, because we're doing, I'm doing healing. Let me move this guy out of the way so you can see. I'm going to roll towards me. So you're just gonna put your candle in your oil like this and just roll. You just want it to be completely coated, right? You can see, it's kind of hard to see, but it is completely coated. It has oil all over it. And so now I'm going to go ahead and roll it in my herbs again towards me. And this is when it comes in handy to have those herbs rolled up as finely as possible. See? What I'm doing is I'm wanting those herbs to stick onto that oil. And now I have a dressed candle. Another thing that I really like about these trays is you can use them to burn on, and one of my favorite things to do is I just lightly and carefully just barely burn the end. Sorry, it's a little windy in here. Barely burn the ends just to where the wax begins to drip. And when the wax begins to melt, you're able to securely place the candle on the tray. Now, I needed to get this a little bit wetter. Sorry, I'm trying to protect it from that wind, but see, melt it, place it on the tray, hold it in place, and that's going to help it stay secure. and I would do this in the middle of the tray. I'm doing it on the side to show you how to do it, but if you're going to use this technique, please do it on the side of the middle of the tray. Now, if you were going to do any kind of removing, banishment, again, you would roll it away from you. So just keep that in mind, okay? Now, let's move on to how to dress glass encased candles, and I'm going to do a couple of demonstrations of that for you as well. Okay, which is, now we are ready to do some glass encased candle dressing. Now, there's a couple of more items that you're going to want to have that I failed to mention before, and if you have them handy, that's good. If not, just pause the video and go grab them. Pair of scissors. And then I touched on, when I said that you're going to want Florida water for this course, I touched on a little bit the reason why. I use Florida water to cleanse all of my tools before I use them, specifically candles. So glass encased candles, you buy them from the grocery store, you buy them from the Botanica, you buy them from wherever you buy them, you order them online. You don't know what kind of energies they've been subjected to. That being said, it's important that you cleanse the candle itself of any energies that have attached themselves, spirits that have attached themselves, any preconceived intentions that have infused themselves with this tool, because it could take that on and it could render your spell useless or ineffective. So first thing that I do is I take the candle, the glass encased candle, and I wipe it down, and I say, I cleanse this candle of all negative energies and attachments that may have attached itself before making its way to me. I cleanse it of all energy and all attachments and all spiritual connections before making its way to me, so that it may be a neutral and cleansed vessel to do my will. And you don't have to say it exactly like that. You can say it in whatever language you would like. All right, and here's the white candle that I told you all to have, and we'll do that again. I cleanse this candle of all negative energies and attachments. I cleanse this candle of all energies, spirits, attachments, spiritual connections that it may have taken on before making its way to me. I cleanse this candle so that it may be a neutral and clear vessel to do my will. I command it, so it is. Now that I have cleansed my candles, we're ready to roll. First one I want to show you guys is the white candle. So because I chose for the blend that we're using off the starter witch page, what I chose was healing. As you know, as I made the oil, this is going to work perfectly. Now, white can work towards anything. I could use white for prosperity. I could use it to attract love. I can use it for anything. You can literally infuse whatever intents with this color candle, which is why I suggested that you get it for the course, because no matter what you've decided to do, you will be you'll be using the right color. Now, I'm also going to show you another way of dressing candles, and I'm going to use, well, it's the same method, but I'm going to do different blends, and I'm going to use the green candle, and we'll get to that. So first thing that I'm going to do after I've cleansed it is I'm going to take my scissors, and I'm just going to cut a little bit off the wick. When you'll notice is when you get these kind of candles, they have really long wicks, and yeah, that's definitely not good. So cut down the wick. You can see, cut it down a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and poke some holes into the wax. What I do is I poke holes. I do like a small circle around the wick, going down about an inch or so. You'll see it's a smaller circle. And then I go ahead and I do another ring of circles. And then I do a third ring, and if your candle's kind of thinner, because they do make novenas that are kind of smaller and sometimes a little thicker, you don't have to do 3 rings of holes. You don't have to. I'm doing that for this one. You can do 2 and get away with it, just as long as they're evenly spread out and sporadic like that, right? So what you're gonna do now is you're gonna take your dried herbs, your powders. You can use the same exact blend that you used before that you dressed your candle with that was non-glass encased for the chime candle or taper candle, whatever you chose to use. And just make sure that it's ground up really fine. And I'm also going to tell you that when you're dressing candles like this and you're using this method, a little bit goes a long way. Do not overload. Do not put too many herbs. Do not put too much oil, because if so, then you run the risk of it catching on fire. Those herbs catch on fire. It gets really, really hot in here. If there's more than just that little flame going, like any candle, it gets too hot, it's going to crack and break. Not to mention that will render your spell ineffective, but you also now have a mess. The other reason is because it can catch fire to those herbs, and although maybe it won't cause the glass to break, it will cause there to be soot on the candle. And a lot of soot on your candle is an indication of not a clean burn, and it usually means you need to do the spell again. There's been an obstacle in the way, it hasn't been effective, it hasn't worked properly, it didn't work. You've got to do it again. So you don't want to add extra herbs to where you know that there's going to be soot there. We have to be careful that we find the balance between magical and mundane. And so, I mean, if I use a ton of herbs in here, I know that the candle's going to stood up. So then it's going to be harder for me to do a reading on it to see if it actually worked, because the mundane tells me that that's just, there's herbs, of course it's going to have soot. So I can't really take that on as being a magical concept or revelation when it's just a mundane. So that being said, a little bit goes a long way. And the target is you kind of want to, you just want to sprinkle it over the top, and we kind of want it to fall into the holes, okay? Now again, you're going to speak your intentions. I take these herbs and activate and bless them to be used for the purpose to bring healing, healing to myself, healing to my home, my husband, and all who dwell inside, which is my dogs and chickens and my cats. Okay, so now that I have my herbs in there, I just take it and I go like this. And what that does is it's going to let those powders are going to sink into those holes, and you'll be able to see it working. All right, look at that. See how there's still a little bit of herbs, but most of it has fallen in the holes? That's what we want. So now, and I always just take my finger and I move any loose herbs to the outer rim, because again, it's going to reduce the factor of it catching on fire, creating unwanted soot, creating glass breaks, all that jazz. So now, I take my oil. I'm going to use the same oil as before. And again, speak my intentions. I don't want to use too much of this, so I'm going to drop some in there. Just a little bit, just a little bit. I take this oil and I activate and bless it so that it may be used to bring healing. Healing to myself, healing to my husband, and all who dwell in our home. I command it, so it is. So I just kind of do the outer rim, do a few drops, and then I just kind of turn it like this and move it around like this, and you kind of watch the oil, and then the oil should go into the holes too. And I just make sure that it's evenly distributed. I could probably get away with doing a little bit more oil in here, but I'm not going to because I don't want unnecessary soot. Another thing that the oil can do is, since the oil is a liquid and your wax becomes a liquid, it can kind of drown out your flame. So you've got all this oil liquid in there and then the wax liquid, and it just snuffs out the flame. So you don't want to do that either. So, white glass encased candle fill. Now, another thing that I like to do, is what I have this candle for, is I like to pre-make herb blends and powder and grind them up into powder form. Whenever I have gotten a recipe or a formula down of something that I really like, I usually like to make it in mass and use it repetitively, which is why I have vials of this road opening oil. This is one that's already open, and this is my money draw oil that I showed you in the last video. These are ones that are already open. The ones I showed you in the last video were ones that are not open yet, and those are available for purchase on my website. So just wanted to show you the nice ones, but these are the ones that I use. I'm not going to open brand new ones. Now, like I said before, some of my favorite combinations are road opening. So I've got my road opening oil that I made. This is a recipe that I formulated with my own knowledge and understanding of herbs and flowers and their properties and correspondences. And I also add a little key charm in there. I don't know if you can see it, but that's my road opening oil. My money draw oil, again, my own recipe that I created just from my own knowledge of herbs. I also created some road opening powder, and use what you got, which is, this is just an old spice rack. I think it was like paprika or something like that. I think the McCormick's is the brand, but yeah, when we run out of spices, I always save these for this. So what I did is I made a good sized batch of herb blend that I like to use, my own recipe again, for road opening. Road opening removes obstacles, it clears the path for new opportunities. If you want a new job, but there's something that's holding you back, then you would use a road opener, and that's gonna help open up that possibility to you. So I made a large batch of this powder. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to use my own formulas, and I'm gonna do the same method that we did before with the white candle, but I'm just gonna show y'all again. So this is what you can do when you have pre-made stuff. Oh, and sometimes this will happen. It's not a big deal. When you poke that hole in there, just push it back down. Continue to do a circle on the outer rim. I'm holding that wax down is what I'm doing. Do the outer rim, and then do another one or two, whatever you have room for. This one looks like I'm only gonna do really two circles of holes. Do the in around. And I always get that extra wax and just dump it out. You don't want to stay in there. All right, see the holes? Yeah, good to go. So again, take my powder, my mixture. You can use whatever blend you have. If you find one that you like and you start to contain them, you can. So now when I want to do a road opening prosperity spell, which I use those together all the time, I just go and I grab my oils, my candle, and my pre-made powder. I don't have to worry about blessing over it. I mean, I'll bless it again when I put it in here, but I don't have to do the whole, get every jar out, make the mixture, grind it up, pray over it, all of those things. It's already done. So another thing is you're gonna notice that I use the term pray a lot, and I am not a Christian, and that's okay if you are. And the reason that I use that term is because I did learn from a lot of elders, one elder specifically in the folk magic practice of Southern Conjure, and that was a terminology that she used, and I kind of adapted that. And I used to be really adverse to the word praying because I was raised Catholic, and I had all these apprehensions to a lot of the things that accompanied the way that I was brought up. And I actually had a spiritual guide and mentor tell me that, you know, praying is just asking, it's just really seeking hope from a power greater than yourself. And so when I kind of made that correlation, using the term praying over things made more sense to me. So if you're kind of struggling with my use of that term or wondering why I use that term, I wanted to add that little disclaimer in for you guys. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and pour my powder in. I take this powder and I bless and activate it to clear all paths and open all roads for me and my husband for financial success and to obtain our desires. Now, see again, most of that powder, most of that has gone into the holes. And I just make sure that the rest is on that outer rim, kind of just moving it a little bit. So now I'm going to use my trusty dropper, and I'm going to use a little bit of road opening oil and a little bit of prosperity oil. Now typically I don't mix I don't mix droppers, but for this one I am because it's just right here. Okay, so just take a little bit. I take this road opening oil and I use it to remove all obstacles and blocks from my road so that I may achieve my goals and my desired outcome. Clear the path so that I may achieve my desires. And then I just kind of roll that around again. I'm going to do a little bit of the money draw. I take this money draw oil and I activate and bless it to help bring financial success into my home, into the life of myself, my husband, and us as a union. Aid in helping us reach our goals of financial success that we have set into place for ourselves. I command it, so it is. Oh, and one more thing. Cut that wick. So now I've got a properly dressed prosperity candle. I've got a properly dressed healing candle. And I've got a Shabbos candle, non-glossy case candle ready to go. And that sums up our little lesson on dressing candles. And I'll see you in the next video when we discuss tinctures.